Very good evening to one and all present here. On behalf of the Department of Commerce, D.G. Vaishnav College and the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, I welcome you to the crash course on GST. We are almost on the 10th day of the GST course. Today we have a wonderful resource person for today and tomorrow. We have CMA CA Satyanarayanan, who is an expert in the legal area. He is a legal counsel. He has been appearing before the National Company Law Tribunal (NCLT) of the Chennai region, and he is known for his legal opinions among the professional group. He is a very simple, soft-spoken, and humble person who always extends a help to the students. So whenever we call him, he has already addressed our NSS students on the Constitutional Day last year. He has handled 2 batches of GST course with us, and this is the 3rd batch he is handling us. So on behalf of the principal, management, the head of the Department of the Commerce, the staff and students, I welcome you to the session, sir. Satyanarayanan, sir. Satyanarayanan, sir. The session is yours, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible now. You need to just switch on your video so that students can have a glimpse of you.
Okay, right. I'll do that. Just give me a minute.
Yes.
I'll just keep doing it. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's the session is yours, sir.
Oh,
so
great.
students
Okay.
already joined. Yes, you can take over.
Okay. I think about 27 participants are there.
Yes, sir.
So 24 of them.
Yes, sir.
I find you twice and okay. Nice of you.
You won.
So friends,
students will be joining. I'll be keeping on admitting them. You can continue with your class.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Rakesh sir.
Thank you.
Friends, very good evening to all of you. What I thought is that we'll have an interactive session instead of a one by, because my experience with DG Vaishnava last year was that you're all extremely bright and very powerful students. When I say powerful, you possess power, meaning you are well read, and you have also the inclination. Majority of you have the inclination also to learn, understand, analyze all that. That is my experience. So far that I've had with DG Vaishnava students. Okay, so what I thought this time is that this being also in a VC and that too on a Saturday afternoon, I thought we'll start with an interactive session. Okay, so that will be easier for us to comprehend each of us, so that we can also understand. Because TCS is a one area of our GST, okay, where the scope itself is very narrow, and it's not a broad-based one topic as such. Okay, is that okay for all of you? I just want each of you to unmute, okay, and I also want you to participate so that it'll be easier for us to keep doing the whole okay, session. And let me start the PowerPoint. Hope the video is visible to you now.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Oh, great, excellent, great. What I'll do is that I'll try to close my video so that you will have you'll have unencumbered presentation throughout. Great. What happened? Great. So friends, before we get into TDS and TCS part, okay, I think we'll discuss something to understand what GST is. If you are aware of it, and I mean, it will be easier, when we get into TDS as to why it is important, because that's one of the way, revenue could be mocked up for the government. So let's start having that. Okay, can I invite you to interact so that we'll have what we want to start with. Can you know what is GST for each of you? How will you define GST? Or what is the GST as such? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're on.
Okay. I think I'm able to hear only Rakesh sir's, a voice. I'm unable to get others.
Students, please interact with sir. Ashish, Nirupama, Kirtika Babu, Ashwin, Shashwat. Yes. See, sir will not be able to see all your comments. So you can just
I have about,
and then you can talk.
okay, unmute and talk because I can't see your chat.
Hello, sir. Am I
Yes.
audible, sir?
Yeah, you're audible.
Hi, sir. I'm Nirupama, sir.
Hi, Nirupama.
Sir, goods and service tax is an indirect tax, sir. It's used in
Okay.
India. It's used in the supply of goods and services. Generally, it is a destination-based tax, as some of the lecturers told us.
Okay.
And it is also comprehensive in nature.
Mm-hmm.
It is a value-added tax made on goods and services which is sold for domestic consumption. That's it, sir.
Oh, super. Good. Good, Nirupama. I think your understanding has been good.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Very much audible.
I'm Kirtika. And the goods and service tax is first implemented in the 101th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2017, the
Okay.
1st July.
Okay.
And in our constitution, the word goods and service is mentioned in the article 366(12)(a).
Mm-hmm.
So it is merely a destination based tax.
Mm-hmm.
There are many types, which includes SGST, CGST, IGST,
Mm-hmm.
and CES,
Mm-hmm.
UTGST,
Okay.
etc.
Okay.
And we levy tax GST charge based on forward charge mechanism and reverse charge mechanism.
Okay. What do you mean by forward charge mechanism and reverse charge mechanism?
Forward charge mechanism is paid by supplier, and reverse charge mechanism will be payable or paid by a recipient
Okay.
of goods and
Recipient. Okay.
service.
Okay.
And there are certain exemptions which are given by the government regarding GST,
Mm-hmm.
like it is based on education, electricity, medical,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. And
Okay.
that's it, sir.
Oh, okay. 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 Good. Uh, Anybody else other than Nirupama and Kritika? Okay. I have one more question now. What is this destination tax that we are talking about? How relevant is this? Even Kritika and Nirupama can answer this.
Sir,
Yeah,
can I answer?
please. Is that who's this?
Destination Kirtika, sir.
Okay. Oh yes, Kritika. Kirtika.
Destination means usually we say our where we are, where we want to go or where we should be reached. So
Okay.
it is based on the delivery of goods. So where we deliver the goods is
Okay.
deliberately we call it as destination. So I think so it is the right answer.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, this is Nirupama, sir.
Yes, Nirupama.
Sir, actually, why they call GST as a destination-based tax is GST is called destination tax because the tax are imposed on goods and services that are consumed by the consumer.
Okay.
So they are calling it as a destination-based tax. And in GST, exports are generally permitted with zero taxes. But in the case of imports, taxes are calculated on par with that of the domestic production. I understood in that way, sir, actually.
Good. What is the difference between a destination based or a consumption based? Is there a difference between these two?
I think there is no, sir, but I'm not sure.
Who's this? Nirupama.
Nirupama, sir.
Okay. Good. You don't find any difference. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else here? I think we have another 29 odd people in this thing.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, the consumption based means if GST is imposed on the consumption of the goods by the supplier to the recipient person who is consuming it. In case of
Your voice is breaking. I couldn't hear you fully.
okay, I check with my sir.
Okay.
Now I am. Can you hear my voice, sir?
Yeah, it's better.
Destination based GST it is based on the time of supply and the place of supply.
Oh, you mean destination has both time and place, is it?
Yes.
Okay. How about consumption?
Consumption, if it is imposed on the where the consumer is consuming products.
Okay.
Am I correct, sir?
I just want all of you are right. What we are trying to do is that to understand what is your understanding of the whole concept. Okay. Because this basis, this is the foundation for the entire GST law. And if you have a misconception or if your understanding is wrong, what will happen is that the whole it's like you put up a building without proper pillars to work. What will happen? The whole building will collapse. Yeah, eventually. So that's why I'm trying to understand this from you before we get in. That's why I want many of you to talk, so so that I'll clarify all this, as we go along, and this is very, very important for us.
Yes, sir.
I think we have something called Priyanka who says indirect tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Priyanka, what is indirect tax? Is Priyanka there? Because I've come out of the presentation. I don't know whether you are able to even view this, what is my screen is. Priyanka, can you tell what is what do you mean by indirect tax? Or anybody else?
Indirect tax means it is enforced or levied by the government on goods and services.
No, all taxes are imposed by the government.
Government, sir. Goods. Indirect tax.
Anybody else? What is indirect tax?
Sir, tax imposed on goods and services, sir. And the indirect tax will be paid by another person, sir.
What do you mean by another person?
Like supplier's tax will be paid by the purchaser, and the ultimate customer will pay all the taxes.
What do you mean by
the
that?
Tax can be shifted from one person to another, sir.
Good.
It can be transformed, sir. Direct tax we cannot do, sir.
Okay. The incidence of tax is being shifted. You're right. Okay. What happens is that the tax is not shifted. The incidence of tax is shifted. Okay. Superb. And what is a tax? What is tax?
Sir, it's a compulsory note collected by the government, sir.
Compulsory?
It's a compulsory part of their income or the service they do. They'll collect a part of a percentage of amount from that, sir.
A service they do, for that they compulsorily collect, is it?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Kritika, source of income to government. Okay. Nirupama says money which government asked for facilities or services made by them. Okay. Anybody else? We all know contract law, right? How many of you know contract law? I don't know whether is there a facility to raise hands here in Google Talk?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, right. Okay. Right. Now, if you look at contract law, if we see, okay, do we know Section 25 of Contract Act? What is Section 25? A contract without consideration is void. Right? What is a consideration? In simple terms, it is quid pro quo. Right? Quid pro quo, which is something in return. Okay? It is something in return. Now, if you look at whatever you've said, okay, be it Prithvi or Ashish or Nirupama or Kirtika, whoever is told, okay, they've said for whatever the government is providing, for that, they're asking something, this tax is being paid. Like we normally say, right? In practical life, what we say, look, we pay road tax, but the roads are maintained very badly. Do we say it or not? We all say that, right? Something in return, right? Now, but this is not the concept of tax at all. That's why I thought, we'll explain what tax is. Now, the Supreme Court, the word tax is not defined in any act. To take any act, the word tax is not defined at all. Supreme Court in Delhi Cloth Mills case, okay, defined the term tax. And it actually said what is tax, what is a fee. Because in government we also pay fee, right? Not just schools and colleges or this thing, we pay fees to government as well. Like for example, in registration we pay a registration fee, okay, to the government. And like that, a lot of fees we pay to government as well. Now the Supreme Court was trying to understand what is a tax, what is a fee. And it said in fee there is something in return, meaning quid pro quo will be there, okay, which is defined in detail under section 2 subsection D of the Contract Act, Indian Contract Act. But when it comes to tax, there is nothing in return. Like Shriram had said, it's not a compulsory contribution to the state revenue, okay, it's a levy by the state. When I say state, the government, okay, it is a levy by the government for a set criteria, that's all, okay. When it comes to tax, there is no discretion at all. Whatever is the law, that is what we need to get in. That's it, nobody has anything else to talk when it comes to tax. Is that clear now? So it is not something in return. It's a levy. It's not a compulsory contribution. The word contribution means, I also contribute to you. There is a corpus to which I contribute. It's not even a contribution. Is it clear, whatever I'm saying? Okay. Okay, right. I've got some yeses. So I presume, all the others also hold the same this thing. Now, having said this, okay, then where is the power, okay, to levy tax? The levying of tax comes directly from the Constitution. Directly from the Constitution, the government gets the power to levy tax. Without the constitutional power, okay, the government cannot levy tax. Now, say Article 265 of the Constitution says that no tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. So whatever is there in law, only to that extent any government can levy or collect tax. Levying is different, collection of tax is different. This is very, very important for us to start knowing TDS provision. Okay, in TDS, this is where the difference is. Okay, good, excellent. Now I want you to unmute whenever you feel like asking questions, so that you keep asking questions and we interact so that it will be lively. Okay, you'll also understand whatever we talk here. Now, having said that without authority of law, the government cannot levy or collect tax. Now the question comes in, okay, now indirect tax also we know now when the incidence of tax is shifted, it becomes indirect tax. So we know what is tax. Tax is a levy by the government, okay, under an authority of law. Then we have the next one. What is indirect tax? Is where the incidence shifted. Now we also need to know, is GST a destination-based tax or consumption-based tax? Before that, let's also try to understand few more things about GST before we get in. Now, first and foremost is that though GST is an indirect tax, okay, it is a value-added tax. What do we mean by value-added tax? Only for the addition of any value, the tax is levied. Meaning, when X rupees is added as in value, then to that increased consideration, tax is levied. Okay, and this levy of value-added tax will be at all points of supply chain, and this is what is important, with credit allowed for any tax paid on input. Whenever some payment is made towards purchase of goods or goods and or services, whatever tax is paid, that is given credit for the subsequent transaction in the supply chain. Now, quickly, this all know, it covers all this manufacturing, trading, services, which was hitherto different. One important thing is that it removes the cascading effect of tax. What is cascading effect of tax? Don't put in your chat box because I'll not be able to see the chat box now. I'm in the presentation slide mode. Okay, just please unmute. This is important for us to know what is the difference between destination-based tax and consumption-based tax. Now, this difference is very, very critical. Unless we know this, the whole thing will be in a jeopardy. What is cascading effect of tax?
So am I audible?
You're audible? Who's this?
Kirtika, sir.
Kirtika. Yes, Kirtika.
Tax which is levied on another tax is called cascading, I think so, sir.
Okay. Okay. Tax on tax. You're right. You're perfectly right. Okay. You're perfectly right. Great. So tax on tax is called cascading effect. This happens whenever there is a consumption-based tax. Okay. Because every person is a consumer, and when he is a consumer, okay, he pays a tax, and whatever comes out of it, again, it gets taxed. For example, if in Maharashtra, if a manufacturer, the word is RER, it's a mistake, manufacturer sells it to a wholesaler within Maharashtra, okay. In the previous regime, before the GST, okay, excise credit will not be given because it's only a sale transaction which happens. Okay, even on that excise duty which is paid, tax is levied. Now, from Maharashtra, if somebody sells it to a retailer in Madhya Pradesh, the wholesaler sells it to a retailer in Madhya Pradesh, what happens is that the credit of central sales tax is not given to the retailer, which he pays to the wholesaler. And even central excise paid by the manufacturer will not also, the retailer will not get input tax. This tax on tax is cascading effect. Okay, so this is a major difference, which starts. We'll go back to the multiple registrations are not required. All these Okay, I don't have to tell you. Now it's one point of taxation, not different points of taxation. Now, there will also be uniformity in the tax rates. This is where we have the GST Council playing in. The dilemma whether something is a good or a service is also a big dilemma, okay, which is resolved by Schedule 2 of the CGST Act, which says very clearly what is a good, what is a service. Like, construction is a service sort of. Now, this and all we'll skip, we know what, okay. Now look at the cascading effect. This will give you the cascading effect. Okay. Now value addition, if we take, it is 10% under the pre-GST era and GST era. Okay. Then the base price will be 10,000. To that we'll add the SENVAT, which is a 12.5%, 1250. If GST is 18%, 1,800 on 18% on 10,000, 12.5% on 10,000. It becomes 11,250, 11,800. This is the price at which it will be sold to the wholesaler or the distributor. This 10,000 not only includes the product cost, but also the profit to the person, manufacturer. Okay. Now, the next one that we have is the cost of goods, where you have value addition of 5,000 rupees. Could be his profit for the wholesaler when he sells to the retailer, and in both cases it will be 5,000. If you look at pre-GST, okay, this 11,250 plus 5,000 added 16,250 on this 12.5% is laid. Okay, 2,031. Now, if you look at the GST era, the 1,800 which is already paid here. Okay, this one, whatever is paid here, okay, you will get a credit here. This is the ITC credit. This is the ITC credit. You get this credit. Once you get this credit, what happens is that the whole thing comes down to 15,000. Only if you look at the this thing, this 10,000 and this 5,000 alone are added, okay, to make it 15,000. And on this 16,250 you levy 12.5. On this 15,000 you levy 18%, 2,700, 18,281 and 17,700. If you look at the 18,281 and 17,700, then when the retailer sells to the ultimate consumer, what happens is that the input is again given of 2,031, which is the VAT component alone is given. Okay. Whereas in this case, if you look at the entire 4,700 of tax, okay, you get. This is GST because it's already 1,800 is given. The total is only 1,700. If you look at 10,000 plus 5,000, 15,000 plus you have a value addition here. 17,000 is the total this thing. Okay, on which if you add 3060 becomes 20. Now look at the difference now. The effective rate of tax is 21%, okay, in the pre-GST era, whereas the tax is only 12.5. But everywhere we saw only 12.5, okay. Now whereas in GST, if you look at 18%, the effective rate is also 18%. This difference, 12.5 to 21, is because of cascading effect. And this can happen whenever there is a consumption-based tax. Even service tax was a consumption-based tax. Okay, consumption-based tax. Now we need to know what is destination-based tax. That's why I'm telling you all this. Okay. Now, as you all said, okay, you were all right when you said it is levied on supply of goods or services. Supply is very important. Section 7 of CGST Act defines what is supply, read with schedules. Now, it is again a destination-based tax. What is destination-based tax? Where it is consumed, the place where it is consumed. Like someone said earlier, I think it was Kirtika, who said that. But the only difference, when she started explaining that, probably it was not clear, okay, as to she understood it. For example, I'm going to sell a product from Chennai to Bangalore. Okay, the consumer is in Bangalore. Okay, the person who's going to purchase it from me, or the service recipient, because I'm being a lawyer. Okay, I'm an advocate by practice, though I'm a member of this CM Institute as well. Okay, and now if you look at the difference, what we have is that the destination based tax determines, okay, whether it's a CGST, SGST or IGST. Just not place, place of supply comes in mainly because of the destination based tax. Otherwise you will not have. And which state government will get revenue is that the place where the recipient reside. Now this is going to change the whole scenario of this. Now this is also important when it comes to TDS. That's why you need to even TDS is there mainly on this count. That's why I've been explaining it to you in that detail. Okay. Now, so the Karnataka government is the one who will get the benefit of tax. So the tax will go to the kitty of Karnataka government. Now tell me, how many of you have seen today's newspaper or seen the news? Was there any news about GST in the newspapers or in the TV yesterday, today? Can you all unmute? tell me what is that? Hope you are all awake, huh? Hello? Hello? Are you all awake?
Yes,
Hope I'm
sir.
not.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Hope-
sir.
Okay. Okay. Is that making sense for you? Don't send me a chat. I think Kritika has sent me a chat now. Okay. Don't send me because tax on target. Because I'll only when I come to this screen, I'll be able to see. If I'm in the presentation mode, I'll not be able to see any of your chats. Can you please tell me, have you seen anything in the news about GST? One advice I'll give you, okay? This advice I got, when I was doing my CA, which is about 25 years back. CA and CMA I did together, okay? We completed also together in the year 1994, both CA and CMA. The advice that I've got is that, if you want to specialize in taxation, okay, you have to keep your eyes and ears always open and look for any news on tax. This not applies to tax, it applies to any a field of knowledge. Just keep adding and also start analyzing it. That's very important. If you have not been so far doing it, it's only news, right? At the end of the day, it's only news. As we see, political news, this is also something concerned to our profession or the workplace, that what we want to do. It's our passion, right? If you want to be like, keep doing it. Now, the news that I'm talking about, that is a CAG report on the utilization of compensation cess, or the violation made to the Compensation Cess Act. Okay, why this compensation cess? Is because the government which needs to receive the amount, if it is short, that's being compensated sort of. Now that is also based because it's a destination based tax. It's not where the consumer is based. That's why what we have is something called IGST. The very concept of is IGST a tax? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Sir, this is Nirupama, sir.
Yes, Nirupama.
Sir, IGST is nothing but among the three components of GST, it is also one of the component. That's it, sir. It is not a separate tax, sir.
Okay. Anybody else wants to add? Okay. Just listen to me. Now, have you heard saying that GST is in India is a dual tax regime? One of the feature of GST in India is that it's a dual tax regime. Have you heard this? What is this dual? One is a central tax, one is a state tax. That's all. So we have central tax called CGST, state tax called SGST or UTGST. So where does IGST come in? Strictly speaking, IGST is not a tax at all. It's an intermediary. Okay, as GST is a destination-based tax, okay, I'm talking in this detail because students of DG Vaishnav, okay, have a fair knowledge on whatever they do. That's my take. Okay, I actually graduated my commerce. Bachelor's was from James Jain College. Okay, long back, talking about 30 odd years back. Graduated from James Jain College, but that time itself, DG Vaishnav was known for commerce. Okay, one of the three colleges that was known for. One was those days it was DG Vaishnav, James Jain, and Loyola were the three colleges known for, in addition to Vivekananda. Okay, well known for commerce. Now, my last interaction with the college students was that they are very good. That's why I'm telling you this. IGST is not a tax at all. It's only an intermediary. It finally gets converted into CGST and SGST. That's why if it is 18% IGST or tax, CGST is 9, SGST is 9. Okay, adds up. They put it as IGST because they need to give input credit. On all IGSTs, will either an input credit will be given to that or it will get refunded. Strictly speaking, it's not a tax at all. Strictly speaking, it will not be a tax at all. It is only a transitionary levy. It's called transitionary levy, or it's a transitional tax, which gets ultimately converted into either CGST and GST, SGST, or CGST and UTGST. Is it clear now? Okay, I'll keep moving. Okay. GST applies to all goods and/or services, right? What is a good? What is a good? Again, I've got some chat. What is a good?
Sir, it is include movable property, sir. Under section
Movable properties. Movable properties. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay. The next question is: will land and building become goods? Are they goods?
Oh no.
No.
No,
so
sir.
On land and building, there cannot be GST. But they've said construction services would amount to a service,
Sir.
right?
Yes,
That's Schedule 2, which says. Why I'm telling you this is that as we go along, we'll see something on this as well. Okay. Now I'll skip all this because you know this. Okay. Now this is very important. CGST goes to the central government account and SGST goes to state government account. The IGST, in case of an interstate supply, okay, interstate supply, normally, if you need marbles, would you be ordering from Rajasthan as a consumer? If you want to lay marble in your house, will you be normally ordering from Rajasthan? You'll go to the nearby shop here, right, in Chennai to get marbles, right? But that person might order and get it from Rajasthan or from Kadapa, for that example, if he needs a Kadapa stone, right? Now, what will happen is that when it is supplied from Rajasthan or Kadapa to this trader in marbles in Chennai, there will be an IGST. He will not be the ultimate consumer. That you are the ultimate consumer, and when it comes to you, okay, he is going to charge you CGST, SGST. Towards that, he is going to offset the IGST which he has paid. This is where the intermediate tax or transitionary tax comes in. But let's say, suppose you being a consumer directly orders marble from Rajasthan, what will happen? You will be paying IGST. Will you be taking input credit? You would not be taking input credit because you will not be selling it. It is for your consumption. You are the ultimate consumer. Okay. In that case, it is shared in a particular proportion between the center and state. And this is not 50-50. Mind, this is where the whole this thing is. Okay. It is not 50-50. But in a different fixed proportion, it is being shared. If it is to be, otherwise, it will get consumed, into the whole this thing. Okay. This also I'll skip. Okay. This is something that we might also need to know, before we get in. If I'm going to sell some goods, okay, A is going to file a return called GSTR1, which is the details of supply. And this information, GSTR1, will get reflected in 2A, right? Which will be taken as input credit when that person wants to claim it. This is where the cash and credit ledgers come in. It's very, very important for us, And this credit ledger will not include TDS. Electronic credit ledger will not include TDS. So in case if it is not utilized, there can be a refund. It can be a refund. Okay. Can we move on to TDS? Any doubts so far? I thought, this preamble is important for all of us to start with, because the things that we are going to talk about could have some impact on these. Can we move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now, what is TDS? Any of you, any full form of TDS?
Tax deductible source.
Tax deductible source. Okay. Is that a tax?
No, it's not a tax, but it's collected preemptively before collecting taxes.
Oh, great.
Minority and tax.
Okay. Now, if you look at the words in Article 265 of the Constitution, Indian Constitution, what it says, no tax can be levied or collected without the authority of law. Now, this is not levying of tax at all. Okay. This is tax which is being collected. A tax already levied or leviable is collected. One of the modes of collecting is TDS. Now, if an amount is collected as TDS, will the credit be available to that person immediately? The credit will be available only when the return is filed. When the return is filed, towards his tax liability, it can be adjusted. This is very, very important for us to know. Okay. This is very, very important. I'll tell you again why this is important as we go along. Now, this TDS mechanism is used for two broad purposes. Okay. One, somebody was telling right earlier, saying that this is for contribution to exchequer. This is one of this. Now, which class are you all from? Which year are you all from? Second year or third year?
Second year.
Sorry?
Second year, sir.
Second year. All of you are from second year?
No, sir. Actually, half the second year and half third years are there, sir.
Third year is also there.
Yes, sir.
Now, Okay. Now, and understand this, you all have studied something called financial management, or do you have a paper on financial management?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a time value of money?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is where the whole this thing is. Okay. When the government receives TDS, it uses it. What it is trying to do is that it is trying to maximize its present value of money. It is trying to maximize its present value of money, and at the same time, the assessee or the taxpayer, okay, taxpayer will not get credit immediately. To that extent, there is a time lag between this, the TDS, and when it is available to him at a later date. Okay, this is one purpose, so that it adds to the collection for the exchequer for their immediate use. The second thing, originally TDS was introduced in the Income Tax Act to minimize the tax evasion by taxing income partially or wholly at the time when it is when the income is generated or when the supply is made. Supply or payment is made. Mostly on payment, okay, whenever it is done. Okay, so that it becomes. Now, TDS as a general concept is originally from the income tax law. Now it is extended to GST as well. It was there under the VAT regime. Okay, under the VAT law, it was there. Now, few words we need to know for us to know. Okay, here the taxpayer word is not used at all when it comes to, because the taxpayer is otherwise the deductee. The deductee is the taxpayer. Okay, now we'll come to that. Now, taxable supply we are all aware of, right? What is taxable supply? Don't look at this. You'll have only half information.
Sir, taxable supply is defined under section 2, subsection 108, sir.
Okay.
It says that supply of goods or services or both which is leviable under which is leviable to tax under this act. Here
Okay.
it is extended to goods for 40 lakhs, services for 20 lakhs, and for both when it comes to goods and services it is 20 lakhs, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now, how about exempted? How about exempted tax? I mean, from GST, goods or services exempted from GST. Will that be a taxable supply?
I think it is not, sir.
It is not. If it is covered under a negative, if it does not amount to supply at all, what will happen? The term supply is defined under section 7, right?
Yes, sir.
If it is not, if that does not come into the term supply at all, then what will happen? Will that be a taxable supply?
No idea, sir.
It will not be a taxable supply at all. First of all, it is not
sir.
supply, so it will not be taxable supply at all. Now, this is very important for us to know. Okay, what you said is also right. That difference of 10, 20, 40 is very important. Okay, only then it becomes a taxable supply. Otherwise, it is not a taxable supply at all. No, this is what I was expecting. Okay, you are right. And now next is deductor is the person who deducts or who is required to deduct TDS when he is making a payment. And deductee is the person, the supplier, on whose payment, okay, the tax is deducted. Okay, we'll know why these words are important as we get along. Okay. Now, when TDS is deductible is that it is deducted, okay, by the person who's paying to the supplier. Okay, only when the total supply exceeds 2.5 lakhs. I'm going to give you a case study for us to understand as well. Okay, here it talks of only total value of such supply in a particular contract exceeds. I'll give you an example to understand it. Okay, take an example of, a road contract is awarded. Road contract is awarded. Okay, now let's say I'm the contractor. Satya is the contractor who has been awarded the road contract. Let's say Tamil Nadu Highways Department, okay, issues this thing to Satya, contractor. Okay, contractor. Now, let's say my turnover is only 10 lakhs. Okay, this is in Tamil Nadu. We are talking about Tamil Nadu. My total turnover is only 10 lakhs in the last year. Okay, now the contract value here is about 3 lakhs. Should TDS be deducted on this? Because they say TDS needs to be deducted. We'll come to the rate later. Okay, on the payment made to the supplier. I'm the supplier, contractor is the supplier here. Okay, this is a contract given, this is the supply. Okay, and the supply exceeds 3 lakhs. Should there be a TDS or not? It's the first question. We'll come to this. Keep this case study in your mind. Okay, as we look through, then we'll have different scenarios to analyze to understand this concept. Is the question clear to you all?
Sir, can you please repeat it once again, sir?
Okay. Now, Tamil Nadu Highways Department issues a contract for 3 lakhs to a contractor called Satya. This is in Tamil Nadu. Okay, state is Tamil Nadu. Now, the contractor's total last year turnover was only 10 lakhs. Now, we know to be a taxable supply, it has to be 20 lakhs in Tamil Nadu, right? 20 lakhs in Tamil Nadu. And when the Tamil Nadu government, when it's a department, it's a government, when it pays this 3 lakhs to Satya, should it deduct TDS or not? Is the question. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, now, who all needs to deduct TDS is a department or establishment of central or state government, a local authority, a governmental agency, person or category of persons as may be notified by the central or state government with the recommendations of GST Council. Okay, now these are the persons who have to deduct TDS. Now coming back here, we'll come back to the scenario. It's a department of the state government. Should they deduct or not? They have to deduct. Okay. Now, if it is, let's say, Chennai Corporation is giving a contract, should they deduct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where do they fall in? Which category will they fall in?
Local authority.
Local authority, yes. Look, all that we need to know is that this is the supply recipient. These are not the supply providers. Okay. All these people are supply recipient and not supply providers. Okay, all these categories now. We'll go one after the other to understand each of these. Okay. Now we'll go back to understand the previous amount. Sorry, yes.
This is Kirtika, sir.
Yes, Kirtika.
Sorry for interrupting first.
No, perfectly. Go ahead.
I can't understand what exactly TTS means.
TDS means only this. Whenever a payment is made, okay, to the supplier of goods or services, a 2% amount on the amount paid has to be deducted. And conditions apply, that is called TDS. Okay, conditions apply to what? Only when these people pay, only these 4 category of people pay, TDS needs to be deducted, not in all cases. And second is that the contract value of that particular supply should be more than 2.5 lakhs. The contract value is less than 2.5 lakhs, no TDS needs to be deducted. Is that clear? Kirtika?
Yes, sir. Who will be benefited by this, sir?
Okay. The question is not benefiting. I'll tell you what has happened. For this, we need to understand some history of tax legislation. During the TNGST time, which is Tamil Nadu General Sales Tax time. Okay, that time we had all general sales tax era before VAT. In Tamil Nadu, VAT was in 2006 or 7. When was VAT? Are you all with me? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because what can happen, I keep seeing my daughter, right? She's schooling. I know what she does. Okay. Or I've also seen a lot of memes. Okay. And this being a Saturday afternoon, it's always possible that, you keep the whole this thing on. The video is anyway switched off. With video switched off, you are always present. Like what happens in a classroom. So it keeps happening. That's why I'm asking, are you present? Are you with me? Okay. So this, who needs to, what happened is that, in 2000, prior to 2007, whenever government awards a contract, the contractors, subcontractors were all, small people. Okay. A road contract, all this. They used to take amount from the government, and there was something called a works contract tax. Okay. They never paid this work contract tax at all. So there was a huge loss to the government exchequer, and all these went undirected. Undirected, government did not knew at all that tax is supposed to be collected. That was the functioning of the government. The left arm of government, whatever it does, the right arm doesn't know, because it's huge. That's why what they did is that, they brought in a concept called TDS to make sure some amount is deducted, so that that contractor will file his returns, because it is not the question of this amount alone. he could have done many other contracts for many other person. Okay, all these went unreported, and tax evasions were huge. To check this, okay, that's why one of the objective is this. If you look at, is to minimize tax evasion. The whole purpose of TDS is to minimize tax evasion. Now, that's why it is brought in. This is more a check. So TDS is more a check to ensure that the person brings the entire amount that he has earned or he has got to the tax net. Is it clear now? Who gets benefited? It's not a question of benefiting. The question to ensure proper compliance. Now I'll give you an example. Okay, how many of you have gone to Tirupati? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
How many of you have gone? Just say hi to all of whoever has gone. Just say hi, hi, hi. Unmute. Say hi. Okay. One. Out of the whole lot, only one has gone, is it? I saw some 30 odd were there. Okay. In Tirupati, if you go, if you do a toss, head tosser, okay, motte edikkirathu. When you go, what they do is that they'll not wipe the entire head in one go. They'll do a small portion. He'll go to the other person. He'll do a small portion to that person. He keeps doing it. So he does that to ensure that the person remains there. Otherwise, it's always possible that the person might leave without paying. And he'll also not collect it at the first. Only after the entire head is shaved, he'll be able to collect it. Okay, what he does is that if he does half and if he goes with half shave, nobody will leave. They'll be there. So he'll collect before when he comes to the next turn. Okay, only then it's also paid. Similar to that is TDS. That's why it's a collection strategy. But the credit is never given upfront. Credit is always reserved and it is given only at a later date. Because the whole of tomorrow, what I thought is that we'll get into the practical aspects. We'll try to do one TDS one. Okay, that's what we are trying to do. That's why I'm giving you all the concepts today. The whole of today will be only on concepts for us to understand, so it'll be easier. Okay. Okay. The next thing that we need to know is that the value of supply on which TDS has to be deducted. Now we saw that only when the total value of supply exceeds 2.5 lakhs in a particular contract, then TDS needs to be deducted. Let's say I give you two different contracts. One contract is for 2 lakhs. The other contract is for 1.5 lakhs. Should I deduct TDS on both?
No, sir.
If one contract is for 2 lakhs, the other contract is for 3 lakhs, should I deduct TDS on both?
No, sir.
On which contract will you deduct? Or
For the 3 lakhs, sir.
only 3 lakhs, right? Now, how do we compute this 3 lakhs is the whole question, 2.5 lakhs. Okay. Now, the whole amount indicated in the contract, excluding the tax. Now, what is this tax that they talk here? Tax means only GST, SGST, IGST, UTGST. Only this has to be excluded. Now, what is not excluded is that if there are other taxes other than these, those are not excluded at all. The next question comes to is that will it apply to reimbursements? It will not apply to reimbursement. Okay, it is for the consideration. Whatever is the consideration on that will be the value of supply. The value of supply will be only consideration. If there are reimbursements, it will not be covered. Now let's take an example to understand this. Okay. Now, a contract says that you have to perform this particular work. For this, whatever goods are required, you can purchase that and I will reimburse that. The contract says that, okay, and it says for the total work, I'll give you about 2 lakhs. In, let's say the invoice comes to 2 lakhs of the work performed, and say another 2.5 lakhs towards the purchase of goods required. Okay, then the total 4.5 lakhs is TDS needs to be deducted. I'll repeat this. The contract says purchase goods, I will reimburse cost. Okay, I'll reimburse cost. Very important. Now, and for service supplied, they say I'll pay you 2 lakhs. Now, at the end of the day, invoice is raised. In the invoice, what happens is that you get service 2 lakhs, goods 2.5 lakhs, 4.5 lakhs. Will there be a TDS deduction?
No.
Give me any answer. Somebody said something. What is that?
TDS will be there.
TDS will be there. Okay. Any other answer? Will there be a TDS?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Anything else? Now, first and foremost is that TDS will be there. Why TDS will be there? Because the total amount excludes 4.5 lakhs. Let's go back to understand this. What it says is that the total value of supply exceeds 2.5 lakhs, it will be. Goods are also supplies only. The only thing is that the payment portion is more of a reimbursement than a actual contract value. Now, coming to on which amount will there be a TDS? Which amount there will be TDS? Will it be on 2 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs or 4.5 lakhs? On which amount there will be TDS?
2.5 lakhs, sir.
2.5 lakhs, okay. Others? It will be only on 2 lakhs. Because this 2.5 lakhs is more of a reimbursement. The contract value that they say here, it's not the total value of supply. Total value of supply is 4.5. But the contract value of contract here is only 2. Is it clear? So there is a difference, okay, between these two. And why taxable supply, we'll come to that later. We'll see that. Okay. Now, whenever TDS is deducted, within 10 days from the end of the month, the tax so deducted has to be remitted to the government account. Central government in case of IGST, CGST, state government in case of SGST. Is it clear? Hello? Okay. How many state governments do we have under the GST Act?
30.
30. Okay. Any other answer? I'm asking about how many state, huh? How many state under CGST, GST Act? Any other answer other than 30? Will it include Jammu and Kashmir? What is the position of Jammu and Kashmir?
It's union territory.
Union territory. So it is 30?
It is included. Not sure of it.
Okay. Now, how many union territory GST is there? UT GST is there?
No, 7. Not to confirm. I'm not able to confirm in case of GST.
Why? Now, 2 union territories are treated as state. Okay, 2 union territories are treated as state. Okay, which are those? One is Pondicherry.
There is Delhi,
Delhi. Third is Jammu and Kashmir. Yes, this Jammu and Kashmir is not the old Jammu and Kashmir state. Okay, it is only the Jammu and Kashmir, the present union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. It will not include
Ladakh, sir.
Ladakh. Now, there are in India 28 states already. Okay, there are 3 union territories which will be treated as state, which is Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi, and Pondicherry. So how many will be in all total? It will be 31. For the purpose of GST, states are 31. Okay. And how many union territories are there in India? There are 8 union territories in India. Okay. Which includes these 3 as well. When we deduct them, 5. So for the purpose of GST, 31 SGST and 5 UT GST. Is it clear? Any doubts? So it's not 30, 31 to be very precise. Now, this is about who all have to deduct. Now, if you look at, this is all the person who needs to deduct, right? A government of central or state government, or an establishment of a central or a state government, a local authority, any government agency, okay? Then person or category of person as may be notified, which is the e-commerce person, okay? All these are the category who needs to deduct TDS. They are the recipient of service, okay, and not the supplier of service. No. all the deductors have to register under the GST Act under section 24 of CGST Act. Okay. Now, second is that for all of them, TAN and PAN is mandatory. TAN is any idea as to what is TAN?
Temporary account number.
Okay. PAN?
Permanent account.
Sir, TAN is also tax deduction number, right, sir?
Exactly. It is TDS account number. It's not temporary. That's why I asked when he said temporary TAN is, I asked what is PAN. Not opposite of this. TAN is TDS account number or tax deduction account number. Now PAN is permanent account number. These two are two different. Okay. Now coming back. TDS deducted should be reported in return form GSTR 7. Now this we are going to see tomorrow in detail. How do we do it? Once amount is deposited as TDS, it will be reflected in the electronic cash ledger and not in electronic credit ledger. Only when it is there in electronic credit ledger, you can utilize an amount as ITC. So in other words, a TDS will not be available as ITC. Okay? Because only when you file a return, the person will be able to claim, it will get shifted to electronic credit ledger and he can avail ITC. Okay, this is very important. Rule 78 and all. Now, what also needs to be given is that a TDS certificate in form GSTR 7A needs to be given, okay, wherein they have to state the entire contract value, not just the amount paid, the entire contract value, the rate of deduction, the amount deducted, and whether the amount is paid into the government account and details of that. Okay. Any non-deduction or short deduction or non-payment or short payment will attract a minimum penalty of rupees 10,000. A minimum penalty of rupees 10,000. Okay, this is important. We'll move on. How can a deductee claim the benefit of TDS? He can claim in his electronic cash ledger because it will come and sit in his electronic credit ledger only when the return is filed. This return will be filed by the deductor, and where it will come and sit? It will come and sit in the electronic cash ledger of the deductee. It will not get reflected in the deductor at all. It will get reflected only in the deductee. Okay. Now, if deduction alone is made, if a return in GSTR 7 is not made, then it will not reflect in the electronic cash ledger as well. Only when it gets reflected in electronic cash ledger, you can take credit of it, not ITC. You can only take credit of the tax already paid and adjust it. Okay, towards whatever amount needs to be paid by the deductee. Okay, so if sorry, somebody said something. If it is not reported, the return is not filed, GSTR 7 return is not filed, then it will not reflect in the electronic cash ledger at all. Now, if there is an excess amount that is deducted, a refund is possible. Let's look at two scenarios as to when refund is possible. In case the amount is claimed by the taxable person in his electronic cash ledger, then refund to the deductor is not possible. Only deductee can claim it as a refund. Say for example, okay, I am a deductor and you are the deductee, meaning you have supplied something to me for which I am making a payment. Unfortunately, without knowing law, what I have done is that I have wrongly deducted. I have wrongly deducted a TDS when paying to you. If I have wrongly deducted to paying to you, I have not filed a return, then I can claim refund of that amount. But if I filed a return and if it is getting reflected in your credit cash, electronic cash ledger, then only you can claim refund. And I can never claim refund of that amount at all at any point of time. Now, this is very, very important, pertinent for us to know. Unless we know this, proceeding further will also be, very, very unlikely. Okay, so that's why this is important in the earlier one. It will get reflected only when a return in GSTR 7 is filed. If the return is not filed, it will not get reflected at all. Okay, so if only then it will get reflected in electronic cash ledger. When it is reflected in electronic cash ledger, then the deductor cannot claim refund. Only the deductee can claim refund. Okay, now because it would have already got into his account, okay, the deductee's account, so only he can claim. Now the next one that we need to know is that in case the amount is not deducted, not so claimed by the dealer, then what can happen is that the excess TDS can be refunded to the deductor. Now, do you understand this situation? Under two conditions, the deductor can claim refund. One is that when he has not filed the return under GSTR 7, he can claim a refund, or if he has filed the GSTR 7 but the deductee does not claim the amount at all, then TDS can be claimed, refund of TDS can be claimed by the deductor, okay, the recipient of the service or the person who makes payment, both same. Any doubt so far? I'll just close this to understand, if are there any doubts so far that we have?
No, sir. Clear, sir.
Clear? Okay. Anybody else? I think it was Nirupama who said, she doesn't have a doubt. Anybody else have any doubt? So can we proceed?
Oh,
from
sir.
there?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes.
Yes. Doubt is there, is it?
Yes, sir. You can proceed, sir.
Proceed. Okay. Somebody had sent some chat message. I don't know who's that. Or it was Rakesh sir was sent. Okay. Now we'll move on. Okay. What are all the preconditions for registering under GST as a tax director? One is that he should have a PAN or TAN number, valid PAN or TAN number, okay, which we saw earlier even. Okay, you saw what is TAN, right? What is that? TDS account number or tax deduction account number. Valid mobile number valid email ID, all these have to be kept ready for registration, because a registration as a tax deductor for the purposes of TDS provision is different from registration, okay, as a registered dealer. Okay, these two I think we shouldn't be confusing about. Once you are a registered dealer, that's fine. Okay, now if you are not a registered dealer, still if you are only deducting tax, because for government departments, if you look at, tax cannot be levied, right? Can tax be levied on government departments? Hello?
No, sir.
No. Then they'll not have a registration under the GST Act normally, GST law normally. But section 24 says if they need to deduct TDS, they need to themselves register. Once they register, the entire GST law will apply to them, even if tax is not to be paid. Okay, they need to file the returns now as required. Now, valid mobile number is required, valid email ID is required. Then one of the document is required. Okay, all the documents are required. Now, one is photo, PAN card, original card has to be there. For address proof, either of these. If it is an own premises, then the latest property tax receipt or electricity bill. In case of a rented or leased premises, then you need either a rent agreement, lease agreement, along with ownership proof like property tax or electricity bill. Okay, what the owner would have paid. Okay, that's also required. If it is neither a owned nor a rented or a leased property, can there be a situation where it is not on rent or it is not a owned one? Can there be a situation? Can you visualize an example of when it can fall into the third category here? Hello? Do you know when it will come in? Can you give me an example? Anyone?
So using related persons' property.
Pardon?
So using related persons' property, like parents or friends' property or business.
Okay, parents then it is okay, okay.
So in such cases, we can't provide any documents. We may give it out of relation.
Okay, good. No, normally in those cases you will enter into a rent agreement, right? At least for the purpose of registration, you will enter into a rent agreement and you do it. For example, and if you're sharing somebody else's office, say an XYZ Limited, okay, has taken a property on lease. It will be its rented property. Now, if you are going to share only one cabin or one table chair in that office, or 2 or 3 table chairs in that office, okay, you may not be a subtenant. You will not be treated as subtenant, though you might pay some amount to them. Okay, so under those circumstances, the third category will come in. Is it clear? Okay. Now, when you are sharing with somebody else, okay, and you are not the lessee or a tenant, then you need the digital signature. Then if authorized signatory is other than DDO is a departmental officer, okay, he is not there, then that person's passport photo is also required. Okay, we'll move on. We know digital signature, right? How many of you have seen digital signature or used digital signatures?
Me, sir.
Super. Who's this? Who's this?
Nirupama, sir.
Nirupama, okay. Because I'll not be able to know any of your names because I'm on this slide. Anybody else? Do you know the difference between e-sign and digital signature? Is there a difference between these two, or is these one and the same? Any of you pursuing any of the professional courses? CMA, CA, CS?
This is Nirupama, sir. Myself doing CA, sir.
CA, okay. Anybody else? Now, if you look at, okay, e-signers, affixing a sign. Normally signs like this are put. Okay, affixing that sort of a sign is e-sign. Digital signature is what you do it using a pen drive. Okay, and this is what is recognized under the IT Act, Information Technology Act 2000. E-sign is, instead of you physically signing, you affix a signature, okay, on a PDF document or on a Word document, then convert it into a PDF and send. Okay, that's also one. E-sign is also now required for certain professionals, what they do, okay, which is also a semi-digital signature. But the difference between the digital signature and e-sign is that while digital signature is protected under law, under the Information Technology Act, e-sign is not protected. Okay, and digital signature is given by a certifying authority, whereas e-sign is not given by a certifying authority, need not be given by a certifying authority. Doesn't have that legal backing that a digital signature normally has. This is something that you need to know, because now, at least to me, I know what the CA Institute and CS institutes have said, e-signs have to be taken. At least they've asked, to give e-signs and all. When it comes to, a company secretary who does not have COP, they've said, you need to take a digital e-sign. That's what they've said. Any doubt so far? What we'll do is that with this slide, I'll stop, okay, for today, and I'll ask any questions are there, we'll take questions. Then tomorrow what we'll do is that we'll look at practically how do we get in, what TDS needs to be detected, and we'll look at some scenarios as well. Is that fine with all of you? I'm not getting feedback, Last time, when I was there in your college, I could get a lot of feedback. I believe that you're also good. Unless you give me feedback, in VC, it will be difficult to know whether you have understood whatever we are talking here, or am I sounding to a wall? Okay, we'll just move. The registration will be like, we'll have all these are the flowchart diagram. Okay, how do we register with all options? Okay, when we go to the registration application as a tax deductor or tax collector, then we need to enter the TAN, PAN, email ID and phone number, mobile number. It will be validated entries. If it is wrong, it will go back. Now we might have to enter. If it is right, then it will generate a temporary reference number. Okay, field form will be uploaded with digital signature or e-sign. Then what happens is that when we click submit, it will go and it will cross check with the external agencies. with external agencies like CBDT to check the PAN number, TAN number, you know, all this, you know, it will be cross-checked. Then if it is valid, it will go to generate an ARN. Okay. Approved registration number, which will be communicated through SMS and WhatsApp and email of the mobile number and the email ID. If it is invalid, again you might have to fill the form, upload it. Okay, it will be verified again. Okay. Once ARN is done, then it will go for further processing by the authorities. Is it clear?
Sir, what is DGFT, sir?
DGFT is Director General of Foreign Trade. You have DGFT. Sorry, tell me.
Sir, in this slide you have given the digital signature certificate and another one called EVC. What is this?
What is that? I'm not getting you. Your voice is not clear.
You have given that some forms of signature like digital signature and e-sign. And what is that EVC, sir?
EVC is I don't know. If you look at, there are different types of digital signatures that we have. Okay. A digital signature is one which has a certificate attached to it. Okay. Or there is an electronically verifiable certificate. These two are different. Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you have done some courses in Coursera or let's say U Academy, all that. Okay. You'll find, you know, they'll say that we'll issue certificate which is verifiable. Like that, you know, this is electronically verifiable certificate. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. DSC is a digital signature certificate. These two are covered under the Information Technology Act, whereas e-sign is not. What I'll do here, Rakesh sir, I'll just stop the presentation here. Okay, so that then I'll take questions. Because there is another 15 minutes to go, and so that if questions are there, you know, for whatever we have had so far, any other questions, you know, you might have, you can ask questions in, and we look at practically whatever we have done today and going forward also, because deduction, I can't show you anything practically. Okay, deduction is just deduction. You just have to, I can only say that, you know, you have to deduct. Nothing else I can say on that, right? But when it comes to other things, okay, other than deduction, return filing and all, we'll see how it does. And we'll also see how the TDS certificate will also be, which is GSTR 78. Any question, friends?
Any questions from the students? Any clarifications with regard to TDS and TCS?
Sir, I don't understand why they collect TDS actually in government agencies. Why do they collect TDS in government agencies? I couldn't comprehend.
You couldn't understand that. Now, there are tax evasions. Okay, to counter tax evasions, they made it compulsory to deduct TDS. Now, I don't know how many of you know it. Under the Income Tax Act, okay, the Income Tax Act has been amended in the Finance Act 2020, and a new class of TCS has been brought in, which is effective from 1st of October 2020. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. Okay, this is more whenever they feel that there are chances of tax evasion, they bring in TDS and TCS. Now, under the, I don't know, a couple of years back, about 3-4 years back, in the second year of the Modi government, 2015 bill, I suppose, okay, Finance Act, they brought in a TCS provision for the branded jewelleries under the central excise. There was huge uproar for that. There's only 0.5% or so as the amount. Okay. The clarification given was, look, this is required. This is more required to avoid any evasions, so that some data will be available. This is why I said, Tirupatila motta edikka pona enna பண்ணுவான், half cut பண்ணிட்டு பாக்கி விட்டுடுவான். Only then the person will come back. Like when amount is deducted from you, then you will come back at least to get refund. You will disclose whatever information is available with you, right? And I don't know how many of you have seen us, being a lawyer, I keep, we get a lot of this thing. Whenever there is a survey under the Income Tax Act, okay, under 133A, or whenever there is a inspection or investigation that gets started under the service tax or the VAT regime or the central excise by DG, CEI, all these, the start point will be, somewhere some information missing. Somebody would have reported, look, I've done this service to a person, okay, and when they cross-check, they will not find any information about that person. Where tax is leviable. That's how they catch. Now, TDS is like that, when I deduct TDS, when I pay to you, Shashwat, okay, what happens is that when I pay to you, I deduct TDS, then you have rendered some service to me, or some supply has been done by you to me, okay, and there, if you don't file return, then I find a return for TDS, the government will come to know that, look, Shashwat has rendered some service, or he has supplied some goods. You understand this? Otherwise, government will never come to know about this unless you disclose or I disclose it.
Okay, sir.
And this has been restricted now for few. Wherever they feel that there could be evasion, they bring it. Normally in works contracts, now the experience of the government has been that in works contract, there are a lot of evasions that happens. That's why it was brought in for works contract even under the VAT regime. Okay, that's the logic applies.
Okay, sir.
Super.
Sir, what is the basic idea of TDS? If they collect TDS by the recipient, and what is the basics of the TDS?
Meaning, what do you mean by that?
Why would they collect it? If they collected TDS from recipient, what is the benefit there?
No benefit. This is only a statutory complaint. That's all. The benefit is only to the government. Government gets money upfront, and until the deductor files the TDS return, that amount will not be available to the deductee, the supplier of goods or services. So the pure benefit is only to the government. That's why I said I was referring to the time value of money under the financial management. Government is trying to maximize. The second reason why TDS is that government is trying to maximize its present value of tax collections.
Okay, sir. So basically, they collect the recipient of the good deducts the tax from the contract value.
Yes. Yes.
You get the money back, right?
No, not getting the money back. When he is paying back, the recipient of service, when he has to pay the consideration to the contractor, he deducts TDS and balance only he pays him. Whatever TDS is deducted will be remitted to the government account. Is that clear?
Sir, your voice was breaking. I couldn't hear the problem.
Sorry. What I said is that for example, let's say that you are the contractor, okay? I am the person who has awarded you the contract, and I am the beneficiary. Now, let's say you have done a work for about 10 lakhs to me. 2% DDS needs to be deducted. How much should be 2% on 10 lakhs?
20,000.
20,000. What I'll do is that when I'm paying you the amount, I will deduct on 10 lakhs 20,000 rupees, okay, of GST TDS, and also I will deduct 2%, which is required under section 194 of the 194C of the Contract Act, of the Income Tax Act. That 2% for the income tax will be paid to the government as income tax TDS. This 2% will be remitted to government as GST TDS. After deducting 40,000, I will pay you 9,60,000 to you. Okay? 20,000 income tax TDS, you can claim it when you file your return from the income tax department. GST 20,000 rupees TDS, you can claim. It will come to your cash ledger, okay, electronic cash ledger, when I file my TDS return, which is GSTR 7. Okay, when you file your return, you can pay your GST tax less whatever TDS is already paid. Is that clear, Shashwat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another information that we need to know is that the TDS under GST is independent of the TDS under the Income Tax Act. That's different. This is different.
Any other clarifications, students? Any clarifications? Any doubts? Tamilling கேட்கலாம் சார். தமிழ் நல்லாவே தெரியும்.
தமிழ்ல கேட்கலாம், தாராளமா பேசலாம் தமிழ்ல. ஏன்னா எத்தனை பேருக்கு தமிழ் தெரியும்னு எனக்கு தெரியாது இல்ல. I've seen North Indian in origin people level. அதனால தான் தமிழ் இல்லாம நான் இங்கிலீஷ்ல சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தது. நாளையில இருந்து தங்கிலீஷ்ல சொல்றேன் நான். If it's convenient to you, தங்கிலீஷ்ல வச்சுக்கலாம்.
Sangeeta Priya, Ashwin, Kirtika.
Yes, sir. More convenient, sir.
Which is more convenient? Tanglish.
Tanglish.
Yes, sir.
Super. Tanglish. முன்னாடியே சொல்லி இருந்திருக்கலாமே இதெல்லாம். தங்கிலீஷ்ல அழகா சொல்லி இருக்கலாமே நம்ம. எனக்கு last time, I don't know whether Rakesh ji you remember.
Yeah, we had a lot of
people,
Hindi students.
Hindi students, and they wanted this thing.
Yes. And our medium of instruction is also English. So adanaala we just kept it as English, but nothing wrong in explaining Tamil. If students are requiring it, we will do, not an issue.
Obviously. You
Okay,
tell
so
me, I'll do it. Okay, don't worry at all.
Yeah. Students can make a request to the resource person. You are free to speak to him. So I think tomorrow also sir will be available. Any doubts, you can get it clarified from sir. So on behalf of the Department of Commerce, DG Vaishnav College, and on my personal behalf, because sir is my very good friend at the Institute of Cost Accountants of India Tax Research Department, I thank sir for his wonderful speech on the TDS, the procedure, forms, and the other provisions. Tomorrow we'll have much more information on the TDS format and other stuff. So meet you all tomorrow. Thank you then.
Thanks Rakesh ji. Thanks friends. Hope it was useful.